Hey, welcome survivors. Alright, so I kind of cheated and I already got a head start. Plus this is the third time I'm trying to do this video because of building glitches. But the only thing I did here was place a foundation at the correct height that I wanted for the circle build to work. Because I had a couple requests for circle builds and how to do wiring and how to place mat glitch builds. Sorry, I was reading that. Alright, so anytime that you start a build, the very first thing you want to do is make sure you have the perk cards. Like contractor, definitely recommend level 2 for that. You'll use way less materials, and happy capper. That way you don't starve when you're building. Those are the two that I use at least. First thing you should always do, move your camp way out of the way. That way it doesn't interfere with your building. And on a side note too, this actually determines the spawn point, not exact. So if you have it here, someone could spawn on top of that rock, basically anywhere near it, except for on top of it for some reason. Typically it's inside of a building foundation because that's Bethel Studio. Alright, so for the very first part of this circle build, this is going to be our centerpiece. And it's a lot easier to do it out of wood. I do recommend changing it to cement later on, especially if you're going to plan on having a pet, because your pets will spawn inside of the foundation and they will die. So what we're going to do is build an X, and it's going to be 2 spaces long, or squares, whatever you want to call them. And you want to make sure these lines are straight, going up and down, because that's how you're going to have to center yourself in the middle. Then we're going to go to walls, put doors on them. And this is actually a really important part, what you're going to have to learn how to do. This is a really good builder's trick, and I didn't even know you could do it for the longest time when I first started playing. What you can do is, instead of placing them like this, you can push and hold X, and you can actually move it around your screen. R1 will lower it. L1 will raise it. And then you can even rotate it using your L2 and R2 button. So, just a little neat trick. But we're going to have to place one of these on each side. This part doesn't matter if you're centered. It's the next part in the circle build process that you're going to need to be perfectly centered. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. And you do not want to do it when you're in third person. You always want to do this when you're in first person. So just use these lines. So we have to move over. The better centered you are, the better your circle is going to come out. So this is definitely important. I think I need to move over. And that's pretty damn good. No, still not happy with that. Use your dot too when you're centering. That little dot right there. It's hard to get completely perfect, but you want to get as close as you can. Excuse me. I'm happy with that. So the next part, you need to delete these. Every once in a while you will get this, and that's okay. Just delete the ones you can, and for these ones, delete that. The reason why that happens is because the one that was over here, this one you can't normally place there. It has to be snapped there because it's too high up to actually build it there. Which I'll show you that later too, because that's actually going to cause a few issues for a circle build, but I figured out a workaround for that. Because you want to find the most perfect flat land you can get. This is not flat at all. So that's why we're going to have to do the workaround, because this spot is really, really low. This spot's a little bit higher. Alright, so then now to the next spot. Well, the next step. What we're going to do is select this, and we're only going to move our right joystick. You do not want to move your character at all, or it'll mess up your circle build. So we're going to select this, and then we're going to rotate. And we're going to do it slowly. You see how the invisible floor is like inside of your floor that you're moving? That's what you want. And you want to make sure the right hand corner is touching the the left hand corner of the door. Just like that, so it's intersected. Once you get that, go to your walls. You always want to use doors. That's very important. This step you want to push and hold your X button. Then you want to use your joystick to move it into place. And move on to the next step. Yeah, just right there, just intersects them a little bit. Push and hold X. This area we're going to have an issue with. You see how the floor dropped? That's because you can't actually build it this high because the ground's too low. So we're going to come back to this section. We can actually go ahead and delete this piece and move this one into place. And when you get to here, you just want to make sure both corners are intersecting as even as you can make it. It's finicky. Yeah, it looks pretty good. No, it doesn't. There we go. Push and hold. One thing too about this pushing and holding process, push and hold X for like a second or two, then move your object. Because if you do it too soon, your character will actually move. He will like jump a little bit before it kicks in, and you do not want that. So now we're going to go to the next wall. Let's see if yes, we can do a little bit on this side. Just make sure it's always at the same level as the invisible floor. Intersecting, yes. Push and hold, then move the joystick. Let's see how far we can build this before it starts to drop. Right there, it's still whoop, I moved it. I moved it up. Right there. Push and hold, couple seconds. Boom. So this is the one we're going to have an issue with. And now time for this side. Push and hold. Always make sure that corner is intersecting. If you have it intersecting too much, your circle won't be a circle. You'll have a gap between it, and this does take practice. They're both intersecting. Cool. And as you can see, the line's all nice and even, except for that open gap and that open gap. Is this where it drops to? Yeah. And then that's gonna drop. Okay. So now we gotta do a little workaround for this little area, which is cool. Just store that. Store this. Alright, so what I want to do, this one is even, yeah, we'll start right here. Gotta love the building. There we go. Now it's time to place the door wall there. And that's the workaround. Does that look a little high? Yeah, I guess not. It might be a little higher. Sorry, I'm a little bit OCD in a little bit this area. That's pretty damn good. Alright, now we just want to rotate it. So we're going to store these. Please don't scrap them. All you're going to do is hurt your junk budget horrendously. So always scrap them when, or not scrap them, always store them when you're doing this. And that way you can place them without using your junk. Because you're not rebuilding them, all you're doing is taking them out of storage. Alrighty. Make sure it's a door. This whole building, we're going to be building doors at first. We'll be changing them to walls and stuff and windows later. We gotta rotate it one more. There we go. Now we got that one to do, so let's store these. This is what you call a floating object, by the way, because they're not actually attached to anything except for themselves. The only problem with floating objects is it will actually make your base slower to spawn in, which there right now is, I'm not sure if it's still going on, but there was a vendor glitch where people were able to steal stuff out of your vendor from having a base that was too slow. And when you try to move your base, you won't be able to just take the blueprint and place it. If you do that, it will actually it won't even place, it'll just be red. And if you do find a place that it will actually sit, it will just glitch out and it won't even look anything like what you build. It'll just be like a small section of it or something. Alrighty, so now we got the final wall in. And mother effer. Let's see if we can fix this. I must have moved or not have intersected them well enough. It's fixable. I built this twice flawlessly. I had other random base glitches, of course. So let's see if this fixes it. No, it does not. So, got an idea. We're going to have to recenter ourselves up. See if that fixed it. I'm happy with that. That also takes some practice. Yeah, so if you do mess up, it's not the end of the world. You just gotta play with it. Alrighty, so now we're down. Now what I want is actually, I'm gonna have a top circle because I'm gonna make this into a lookout tower. So this is something you can do with circle builds. So you can actually build a floating base this way too. Like one of those floating UFOs. This is how you would do that. Place more doors up above. And then we're gonna store all these because we're still gonna use them. Voila. To turn this into a floating base, there is more steps, but I've already made this video twice messing up, so I'm just going to go through the important things. We'll cover that on a later video. So now we're going to build the bottom floor. We already have the top floor built, which is going to be the circle. The bottom one is going to be an actual square. Now I'm not really worried about these lines lining them because I'm actually going to be replacing these with cement later on. But these are just easier to work with in my opinion for right now. That's good. And is that the length we want? Nice. Basically building a big square underneath. Oh, thank you, Bethel Studio. Now what is going on?